In the 1930s, I gave a young student an exercise that would change his life forever. I told him it was dangerous, not physically, but to the mind unprepared, it would feel like madness. Most people, I warned, would try it once and never return. Their consciousness would resist, their logic would rebel, and they would retreat back to the safety of the known. But if you persist, I told him, you will discover something that changes everything. You will learn that consciousness is not fixed. It was never fixed. You have simply been sitting in it too long. That student was Neville Goddard. And what I taught him that day in my apartment on West 72nd Street was not a visualization technique. It was not an affirmation. It was a physical exercise that proves, beyond all doubt, that your consciousness can be relocated. Not someday, right now, tonight. 2 chairs, 2 rooms, 1 shift, and everything you thought you knew about reality begins to crack open. My name is Abdullah, and though decades have passed since I walked the streets of New York City, the teaching I gave Neville remains as powerful today as it was then, perhaps more so. Because in this age of distraction and noise, most people have forgotten the simplest truth. You are not bound to your current state. You never were. Now, before I reveal this technique, understand something. This is not entertainment. This is not theory. This is a practical exercise that will either prove to you that consciousness can move, or it will frighten you back into the illusion of being fixed in place. Most choose fear. Most retreat. But if you're still watching, you might be one of the chosen few. Here's what makes this different from everything else you've tried. Every other technique keeps you where you are while you imagine being somewhere else. You stay in chair 1 while you dream about chair 2. But this exercise moves you, actually relocates your consciousness. And once you experience it, once you feel yourself shift between 2 physical locations without your body moving, you will know what Neville knew. You will know what I taught him. That consciousness is the only reality, and everything else is shadow. In 1931, a broke young dancer from Barbados walked into my lecture hall. His name was Neville Goddard. He had been told about an Ethiopian mystic who taught the ancient mysteries. He delayed coming for 6 months, but when he finally arrived, I looked at him and said something that startled him. "Neville, you are 6 months late." He was confused. We had never met. How did I know his name? How did I know when he was supposed to arrive? "The brothers told me you would be here 6 months ago," I replied. The mystical brotherhood I belonged to had informed me of his coming, and though he was late, he was right on time. You see, Neville came to me wanting what everyone wants: money, success, freedom from his circumstances. But before I would teach him anything about manifestation, I told him something he didn't expect to hear. You must first start with self. Find self. Don't be ashamed of the being you are. Discover it, and start the changing of that self. This confused him. He thought his problem was poverty. He thought if he could just manifest some money, his problems would be solved. But poverty was not his problem. His consciousness was his problem. His sense of self. His feeling of being fixed in place, trapped in New York with no money and no way out. And so I gave him an exercise. The same exercise I'm about to give you. An exercise that would prove to him that he was not fixed, that consciousness could move, that he was not trapped in any state unless he chose to remain there. 2 chairs. That's all you need. 1 in a room where you normally sit. 1 in another room, out of sight. Ideally in a hallway or different space where you cannot see one chair from the other. This is crucial. If you can see both chairs from where you sit, you're just moving your attention. You need to break the visual connection completely. Here's how the exercise works. Step 1. Sit in the first chair. Close your eyes. Feel everything about where you are. The texture of the chair beneath you, the temperature of the room, the sounds around you, the feeling of your back against the chair. Lock this in. This is position 1, your current location in consciousness. Step 2. Now, with your eyes still closed, shift your awareness to the second chair. Don't imagine it from where you sit. Be there. Feel yourself sitting in that other chair, in that other room. Feel that surface, that temperature, those sounds. You are there now. Your body stayed in chair 1, but you have moved to chair 2. Step 3. Stay in chair 2 for 10 seconds. Not looking at it from a distance. Feeling yourself there. Present in that location. Step 4. Return your awareness to chair 1. Notice the difference. The weight. The feeling. The atmosphere. You've moved back. Step 5. Now move back and forth between them in consciousness. Chair 1 where your body sits. Chair 2 where you choose to be. Continue for 10 minutes until both locations begin to feel equally real. Sounds simple, but listen to what Neville discovered when he practiced this. He said, "My old friend Abdullah gave me this exercise. Every day I would sit in my living room where I could not see the telephone in the hall. With my eyes closed, I would assume I was in the chair by the phone. Then I would feel myself back in the living room." This I did over and over again as I discovered the feeling of changing motion. The feeling of changing motion. That's what this teaches. Not the idea of it, the actual sensation, the experience of consciousness relocating. And here's what Neville said next. Something that proves this is more than visualization. If you try it, you will discover your consciousness becomes very loose with this exercise. Loose. Not fixed. Not bolted down. Loose. You were never trapped in this reality. You were just sitting in it too long. Like a person who sits in one chair for so many years they forget they can stand up and walk to another. But what if I told you this exercise is just the beginning? What if I told you that once your consciousness becomes loose, once you feel it move between these two physical locations, you can then move it anywhere, to any state, any reality, any version of yourself? That's what I taught Neville. The chairs are training, practice, proof that consciousness moves. But once you master this, once the feeling becomes natural, you can relocate your consciousness to wealth, to love, to freedom, to any state you choose, and the world will reshape itself to match where you have moved to. Now, most people will try this once. They'll feel a faint sensation, a slight tug toward the second chair, and their mind will argue, "This is silly, this isn't working, I'm just imagining things." And they'll stop. They'll return to the safety of their fixed position, and they'll never know what they almost discovered. But here's what happens if you persist. If you practice this exercise 5 to 10 minutes a day, a few times a week, for just 1 week, your consciousness doesn't relocate in one dramatic leap. It loosens gradually, like ice melting. Day 1. A faint tug toward chair 2. Your mind argues, but your deeper self knows something is happening, something real. Day 2. The sensation gets stronger. Chair 2 starts feeling more solid, more real. Your consciousness is beginning to shift. The borders are softening. Day 3. This is when most people freak out and stop, because on day 3, the flicker becomes undeniable. You feel yourself shift, actually move between the chairs. It's so subtle you'll think you imagined it, but you didn't. This is real. Push through. Days 4 and 5, the pull begins. Chair 2, your new reality, starts calling you, like it recognizes you, like you've sat there before in dreams you've forgotten. Keep going, the breakthrough is close. By the end of the first week, something remarkable happens. Both chairs feel equally real. Your consciousness no longer feels bound to your body's location. And you begin to understand what I taught Neville all those years ago. Location is not physical. Location is consciousness. And consciousness can be anywhere you place it. Now, I know what you're thinking. Abdullah, this is interesting. But what does moving between two chairs have to do with manifesting wealth, or love, or success? Everything. Because once you prove to yourself that consciousness can relocate, you understand the principle behind all manifestation. You cannot manifest from where you are. You must move to where it already is. When Neville came to me desperate to go to Barbados, he had no money, no ticket, no way to get there physically. And he stood in my apartment explaining all the reasons why it was impossible. I looked at him and said 4 words. "You are in Barbados," he argued. "But I'm standing here in New York. I have no money. I have no way. and I did something that shocked him. I turned my back on him, walked toward my bedroom, and slammed the door. This was not an invitation to follow me. The lesson was complete. Because he was asking for evidence before assuming the state. And this is impossible. You cannot wait for proof before you move. You must move first. Then proof appears. Neville stood outside my door, confused, rejected. But in that moment, something clicked. He understood. He couldn't be in two places at once. He couldn't be in New York hoping to get to Barbados. He had to be in Barbados. Consciousness had to relocate completely. And so he went home and did what I taught him. He practiced the two-chair exercise. He felt his consciousness loosen. And then he did something more. He moved his consciousness to Barbados, not imagining being there. Being there. Within days, everything changed. His brother Victor, from his family back in Barbados, sent him a letter. Victor enclosed a $50 draft and told him, "I've notified the steamship company to issue you a ticket." Neville had not asked for this. He had not told his family he wanted to come home. But once his consciousness relocated to Barbados, the world had no choice but to create a bridge of incidents to match that new location. Neville got to Barbados with zero money of his own, because consciousness creates reality, not the other way around. Now, if what I'm sharing is resonating with you, I want you to do something right now. In the comments below, write one word: reset. When you do this, you'll receive the Manifest Reset, a guide with 5 practical shifts that will help you return to the state of the wish fulfilled when you fall out of it. Because you will fall out sometimes. Your old consciousness will try to reclaim you. Doubt will creep in. Fear will whisper that none of this is real. But these 5 resets will guide you back. They're based entirely on what I taught Neville, what he taught his students. What works? Reset number 1 shows you how to stop forcing the feeling when visualization feels fake. Reset number 2 shifts you from seeking to having. And reset number 3, about letting go without giving up, has helped more people break through resistance than anything else I know. So comment reset right now, get the guide, and let me continue. Because what I'm about to reveal next is what separates those who succeed from those who fail. The principle that determines whether this exercise remains a curiosity or becomes a tool for total transformation. Persistence. That is the iron law. An assumption, though false, if persisted in, will harden into fact. This is not philosophy. This is law. As certain as gravity, as reliable as mathematics. But most people lack the courage to persist. They try the two-chair exercise once. They feel a slight sensation. And when their bank account doesn't immediately fill with money, when their specific person doesn't immediately text them, they conclude it doesn't work. But they're testing the wrong thing. The two-chair exercise doesn't test whether you can manifest money. It tests whether you can relocate consciousness. And if you persist with it, if you practice it daily until both chairs feel equally real, you prove something revolutionary to yourself. You prove you are not fixed. You prove consciousness moves. And once you know this, truly know this from experience, you can apply it to any state, any desire, any version of reality. This is what Neville did. He practiced the chairs until his consciousness became loose, and then he applied the principle to his greatest desire at the time, getting to Barbados, and it worked. Not because he got lucky, but because he understood the law. You cannot imagine being somewhere. You must be there in feeling. That's the difference between dreamers and creators. Dreamers imagine from a distance. Creators occupy the state. And the two-chair exercise teaches you how to occupy, how to be fully present in a location your body hasn't reached yet, how to make the invisible real through the power of consciousness alone. Now, here's what I discovered in my years of teaching, something that even Neville took time to fully grasp. The two chairs aren't about furniture. They're about identity. One chair holds who you used to be. The other holds who you've already become. And when you move between them in consciousness, you're not just changing location. You're changing self. This is why the exercise feels so powerful. This is why some people feel their hands shake the first time they try it. Why some feel a sudden snap as consciousness relocates. why everyone who truly does it says the same thing afterward. I'm free. Because for the first time, they feel themselves move. They feel the prison of their current identity crack open, and they realize they were never trapped. They were just convinced they were. The real you never left chair too. You've been glimpsing it in dreams. Feeling it in flashes of knowing. That tug in your chest when you first try the 2-chair exercise? That wasn't longing. That was memory. You're not shifting into a new life. You're collapsing back into your true reality. The wealth, the love, the freedom. It's not the future. It's the original. All you're doing now is realigning with truth. And once that shift clicks, once consciousness locks into the new position, reality catches up. The world reshapes itself into a bridge of incidents to support your new location. You don't need to know how. It unfolds itself in a series of events over which you have no control, but which you will be compelled to walk. This is faith. Not hoping, not wishing. Faith is loyalty to the unseen reality. It's putting your consciousness in the second chair and holding it there until the visible world conforms. Neville used this exact principle to escape the most powerful military in the world. 1943, World War II. He was trapped in the United States Army. His commanding officer laughed at his discharge request. "You're here until the war ends, soldier." But Neville knew what I had taught him. He knew consciousness could relocate. And so that night, he sat in a chair and moved his consciousness home. Not to the barracks. Home, honorably discharged. Free. He didn't hope for it. He didn't pray for it. He occupied that state in consciousness, and he persisted in it. 9 days later, he received his discharge papers. Honorable, no explanation, no reason given. The army processed his release and sent him home. Not even the most powerful military in the world could stop what I taught him. Because external power is nothing compared to the power of consciousness relocated. Now let me ask you something. Do you have the courage to persist? To practice this exercise not once, but daily? To feel your consciousness loosen and then apply that looseness to your greatest desire? Most people don't. Most try it once, feel nothing dramatic, and return to the comfort of complaining about their circumstances. They go back to trying to change the world instead of changing their consciousness. But you're different. The fact that you're still watching means you sense something true in this teaching. You feel the pull, and that pull is your deeper self recognizing what it already knows. You are not fixed. You are not trapped. You are not bound to this state unless you choose to remain here. Before I tell you what happens next, before I reveal what Neville discovered after mastering the 2-chair exercise, I want you to take action on what you've learned. Because knowledge without application is worthless. And I taught Neville to be a doer, not just a hearer. So right now, comment reset below this video. Get the Manifest Reset Guide. Because when you practice the 2-chair exercise tonight, when you feel your consciousness begin to move, you're going to need those 5 resets. You're going to need practical tools for the moments when doubt creeps in. When your old self tries to reclaim its territory. These resets are your companions, your way back to center. Your practical tools for maintaining the new state when everything around you seems to contradict it. Comment reset. Get the guide. Do it now. Because what I'm about to share next requires you to be grounded in the principle. And these 5 resets will keep you grounded. Once Neville mastered the 2-chair exercise, once his consciousness became truly loose, something remarkable began to happen. He discovered that consciousness doesn't just relocate within imagination, it projects outward into the world. Neville told this story in his later years. He said that I taught him to practice the art of motion. And one day, he discovered something shocking. By the very act of imagining himself in a location, he became detached from his body and was placed exactly where he was imagining himself to be. So much so that he was seen by others who were physically there. Not imagined by them, seen. As if his body had actually traveled to that location. This is not fantasy. This is what happens when consciousness fully relocates. The invisible becomes visible, the inner becomes outer, and others perceive what you have assumed to be true. creation is finished. The question is not, can you have it? The question is, can you occupy it? Can you put your consciousness there and keep it there until the world conforms? Most cannot. They occupy the state for a few minutes, maybe a few hours, and then they return to their old position. They check their bank account and say, "See? Nothing changed. It didn't work." But nothing changed because they moved back. They didn't persist. They tested reality before they had fully assumed the new state. And reality, being faithful to consciousness, showed them exactly what they were still occupying: poverty, lack, limitation. This is why I gave Neville the spatial recognition test. I told him, if you assume you are in New York City, anyone you think of in Los Angeles must be 3,000 miles away. No longer can you think of them as just down the street. Your inner world must obey your new position. If you assume you're wealthy, poverty cannot feel close. If you assume you're in Barbados, New York cannot feel present. The inner landscape must completely conform to where you have moved to in consciousness. This is the test of whether you have truly occupied the state, not whether others see it yet, not whether your bank account reflects it yet, but whether you can no longer feel the old position as real. When Neville practiced this, when he truly relocated his consciousness to Barbados, he could no longer feel New York as home. He felt like a visitor in his own apartment, because consciousness had already moved, and the body, the circumstances, the evidence, were simply catching up. This is what the two-chair exercise teaches. Not just that consciousness can move, but that when it moves, everything must follow. There is no other possibility. Consciousness is primary, reality is secondary, and secondary always conforms to primary. Now, you're ready for the truth that changes everything. The truth I waited for Neville to discover on his own. The truth that, once you experience it, makes everything else make sense. The real you was never in chair 1. You've been in chair 2 this entire time. You just forgot. You fell asleep in the wrong location. And now, through this exercise, you're waking up to where you actually are. That's why chair 2 feels like home when you move to it in consciousness. That's why it pulls at you like memory. That's why some people cry the first time they truly feel it. Because you're not becoming someone new. You're remembering who you've always been. The wealthy version of you. The loved version of you. The free version of you. It's not coming. It's not in the future. It already exists in another state of consciousness. And you're simply waking up there. This isn't about getting to chair 2. It's about recognizing you never left. All you're doing now is remembering, realigning, collapsing back into truth. And once that recognition clicks, once you stop trying to get there and start knowing you're there, the world has no choice but to reflect what consciousness has claimed. Your assumption, though it appears false to the senses, if persisted in, will harden into fact, not because you forced it, not because you made it happen, but because consciousness is the only reality, and everything else is shadow and echo. So tonight, take 2 chairs, place them in different rooms, close your eyes and practice what I taught Neville all those years ago on West 72nd Street. Feel yourself move between them. Let your consciousness loosen. And once it does, once you feel the shift, apply it to your deepest desire. Where will you relocate your consciousness tonight? Your dream city, the wealthy version of yourself, the relationship you've been trying to manifest. Write it in the comments below. Claim it. Declare it. Because what you claim in consciousness becomes what consciousness creates in form. This is law. This is truth. This is what I taught Neville. And this is what I teach you now. You are the operant power, not the world, not circumstances, not conditions. You, your consciousness, your sense of self, that is what creates reality. Nothing else. Live in the feeling of being the one you want to be, and that you shall be. To feel the state as real is to enter that state. Assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled and continue therein. That is the secret. Now, I've shown you the 2-chair technique. I've given you the principle behind all manifestation. But there's something deeper. Something I taught Neville privately that he rarely shared in his public lectures. an advanced identity shift that goes beyond feeling it real. If you're ready to go deeper, if you want to understand the complete teaching I gave Neville about consciousness and identity, watch the video appearing on your screen right now. It's called Beyond Feeling It Real. The advanced identity shift Abdullah only taught Neville privately. In that teaching, I reveal the 7 identity shifts that separate those who manifest occasionally from those who live permanently in the state of the wish fulfilled. The shifts that transform Neville from a broke dancer into one of the greatest mystical teachers of the 20th century. Click now. Continue your training. And remember, you are not here to react to reality. You are here to command it.